Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Alicia Field. I'm the Director of Events for the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to welcome you to today's legislative series webinar, Future Development on and Around the Silver Line. So today's webinar is produced in conjunction with our Public Policy Committee, including our co-chairs Mark Looney of Cooley and Joey Musmar of Millie Musmar CPAs. So thank you to that committee. We really appreciate it. And before we get started, I'd like to quickly recognize our annual sponsors, who you will see here on our screen, our strategic sponsors, our visionary sponsors, as well as our advocate sponsors. I'd also like to thank today's legislative series sponsors, Miller Musmar CPAs, McGuire Woods Consulting, Reed Smith, Sandy String Bank, as well as Walsh, Colucci, Lubley, and Walsh. Other than that, just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. You'll see at the bottom of your screen a few different icons. You're probably fairly used to it by now, but there's a chat box. So in the chat box, please feel free to make comments, just greet each other, anything you'd like to say right now. But if you do have questions, please put them in that Q&A box at the bottom. That way, sort of after every section, I'll see your questions. They won't get lost in the chat, and we can certainly address them throughout the presentation. And if we miss one, please feel free to pop it in again, and we'll make sure to answer it before the end. Otherwise, this webinar is being recorded, so please feel free to take notes as we go, but it'll be recorded, and I'll send you a note with that as well. It'll also be on our Reston Chamber resources page. So other than that, without further ado, I would like to introduce today's presenters. We have Joe Ritchey, the Executive Vice President of Transwestern Commercial Real Estate Brokerage Services, as well as Alex Hancock, who's the Senior Vice President of Transwestern Commercial Real Estate Brokerage Services. And they're here to give us, of course, just a comprehensive overview of what's going on with the Silver Line development. So very pleased to have you, gentlemen. Joe, please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Alicia, and thank you to the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce, one of my favorite organizations, for the privilege of presenting development along the Silver Line. You know, the Silver Line is a very, very special corridor. It has over 70 million square feet of office space between Tysons, Reston, Herndon, and eastern Loudoun County. To put that in perspective, that's more than the CBD of Los Angeles. It has, through its eastern 2/3, it has major corporate headquarters, including recently opened defense corporate headquarters for General Dynamics and Leidos. It has amazing technology companies, one of which we'll be talking about, several of which we'll be talking about today as we go through the various new urban mixed-use developments occurring in proximity to the rail stations. It has the largest concentration of tech workers on the East Coast. And that, as most of us know, is the reason why we've been so fortunate to get these technology companies to come here and grow, and just incredible growth. Last but not least, and something you're all very familiar with, in the western portion of the Silver Line corridor is the data center explosion, which was already happening pre-COVID, but that has just further launched that demand for cloud services. Effectively, we are the world center for the cloud. 70% of the traffic for the internet goes through there. And right now there are 13 million square feet of data center space in Loudoun County. There are 5 new projects in fast track approval. And in the next 3 to 4 years, that will double to 26 million square feet of data center space. And you add on to that the Silver Line corridor and the Silver Line itself, with the Tysons stations and the Reston East station already, Wheelie Avenue, Reston East, already operational, and the Phase 2 Silver Line to open next year, and add on that to that Dulles Airport. This corridor is a unique corridor, not only on the East Coast, but in the United States. It is amazing what's happening here. Alex and I today Alex will cover Tysons, and I will pick it up as we head west. Let me introduce Alex Hancock, my associate with Transwestern. We are partners on the Reston Town Center listing. Many of you may know that I've been associated with Reston Town Center throughout its history, but I'm happy to say that I have a partner in Alex who has taken over the lead spot, is the primary contact with Boston Properties, and has just done a fabulous job, as indicated by the recent announcement of Microsoft and other deals that we're doing right now. And I'm delighted now to turn it over to Alex Hancock, who will cover Tysons Corner. I'll pick up as we head west.
Thanks, Joe. Alicia, you can flip to the next slide. So I like this slide. First off, it shows the different stations. Obviously, the existing stations go from right to left. The existing stations end with Wheelie, Reston, East. The thing that I particularly like about this slide is it just shows the expansiveness of the opportunity that lies westwardly. Here in Tysons Corner, which we will focus on, that's about a quarter the size of all of Dulles Airport. So it is about 2,700 acres, 4.3 square miles. 4 metro stations have delivered. Next slide, please. Here is kind of the satellite view of Tysons Corner. It's maybe dated about 12 months. Not a lot has changed. Notable developments will point out where there has been some change within the last 12 months. And where there will be some forthcoming development as well. What we will do, and the way that we've kind of structured this presentation, and I noticed on the participants list that a few of you have seen this before. So hopefully there are some things that have changed since the last time that we showed you the presentation. But as you look at these aerials, we've got 1/8 mile and 1/4 mile radii going out from in each of the metro stations. There in Tysons Corner, those are the transit-oriented districts, the TODs, which I may refer to them as. And we're going to cover basically those mixed-use developments that are happening near there. Within those radii, we will leave out some one-off office buildings here and there. Tysons Corner itself is a 30 million square foot office market. Which is expansive in itself. It's about the 15th largest employment center in the United States, with 5 Fortune 500 companies located there. We are seeing a great flight to amenity. The reason we always start with Tysons, while many people know what buildings exist right now, it will show the unique dynamics that each of these metro stations will bring to Fairfax County and also to Eastern Loudoun County as well. And the amount of kind of employment that those will bring, and the success that those metro stations add to the office market, which is what Joe and my specialty is in particular. Coming from a high level, I just want to point out that within 1/4 mile of each of those metro stations, and sorry, it's 1/4 mile and 1/2 mile. Within 1/4 mile of each of those metro stations, about 7 million square feet. So a little over 20% of the entire office product in Tysons is within 1/4 mile of metro. Usually when you go towards metro, you get about a 20% premium in rent. And obviously there's denser office space within there as well. But fortunately, you also get a decrease in vacancy rates. So there's about half of the vacancy that's in the entirety of Tysons. If the entirety of Tysons is kind of mid-teens vacant, those within 1/4 mile radius of a metro are about half of that, about 7%. So it really shows the strength that those metros deliver, even in the recent past. Next slide. So we're going to work east to west, right to left, I guess backwards. We're going to work right to left on the metro station. So we're starting with the Mclean Metro here. Mclean Metro, the big developments that are known here are obviously the Capital One development. That is something that's changed from the satellite aerial that we showed at the top of the call. The Scotts Run development, that Cityline partner owns, basically between the Metro and where the Northrop Grumman and MITRE the campuses are, to the south of Dollar Madison, and then the Highline District as well. As we go through each of these, rendering, and then also kind of some of the expected development levels. Obviously, these development levels will change. They're somewhat fluid as there is reallocation in some of the asset classes, meaning where there may need to be more office, they'll convert residential to office, and conversely, as with Capital One, there's a conversion as well there. Next slide, please. Here's a rendering of the Capital One development that everyone sees driving down driving southbound on 495. You can picture the new Capital One headquarters there. There is what we've affectionately termed a swap, where they can basically reallocate, as I was mentioning earlier, to add in office in lieu of some hotel. This is a rendering, but in the foreground here, those buildings and structured parking have delivered. There also will be a 100,000 square foot event center opening next year. Next. It looks like we're slightly distorted on this screen. But this is a Scotts Run development in totality. This was a development that was pitched for the Amazon HQ2 in round one of that. The entirety of the development was pitched. Since then, Cityline Partners has sold off a portion to Lennar for residential multifamily units. And then on the left side, on the, I guess, foreground of the screen, is a development that Acridge has proposed slated for delivery in 22 now at this point. We always use kind of the rule of thumb that once the ground is delivered, or basically once we have to go below grade, once the development comes to grade, with all the infrastructure below it, it's usually by 18 to 24 months for the office development above it to follow. Next. This is a view of 270,000 square foot new office building at the Mclean Station. Next. This is pretty important because it basically shows what Tysons, the comprehensive plan included, which was building some of these grid of streets. We all know that Tysons isn't the most walkable place as of now. The walkability will increase, which is with each of these developments as these grid of streets are required required in order to construct these developments, both from an egress perspective, but then also from a walkability perspective. This highlights a little bit about that Lennar multifamily communities, the residential building I mentioned as well. Next. Southwest of that site, and a stone's throw southwest, is the Highline District. This is where you probably see a self-storage building that was red and now is just recently painted blue. I noticed today when I was driving to the office. That is basically located near where Building E is. They have a large development here. They have started doing some of the stick built on the east side of Old Meadow Road. There's 220,000 square feet of office, but then there are almost 2,000 multifamily units here. And that's a mix of garden style, higher rise, and some townhomes as well. Next. Okay, so leaving Mclean Station, and I failed to mention this. If you have any questions, I know Alicia mentioned, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. As we go station to station, we'll try and answer any questions if there are any about those stations. The next station, we all know, we've all been to the malls there. This is the developments that comprise this metro station include Lerner's entire by right development to the north side of the Tysons Corner Station, and then Macerich, Tysons Mall to the south side. 1A and 1B that you see below 123, basically to the right of the number 2, have delivered. That is Tysons Tower. That's a great success story of building a new product that's on a highly amenitized site, and it was effectively, it was almost pre-leased before the Metro ridership was fully realized. And candidly, before the trains were actually moving, other than for testing, there was a significant portion of leasing already completed in that building. So it's one of those, if you build it, they will come. There's some good companies located within there. Next. To the north side is to the north side is Learner's Development. Again, they developed it. They delivered a building within the past 2 years that is all but fully leased. There may be some floors coming back from that. That is by right, so they can deliver when they have a tenant. Basically, they can start building. They could build speculatively, but they don't have to wait on any approvals or zoning approvals for that, other than site plan. There will be some residential towers, which are shown in the foreground adjacent to the Metro station. Of note on this slide, on the top of the slide, where the mall is, the Macy's used to be there, the Macy's wing, that's of the Tysons 2 mall. Brookfield has acquired that portion, and there will be a brand new Apple store going in there, as well as some experiential retail. At one point, there was talk of a punch bowl social type retailer in that. So to note, while it feels like it's already very built up right there, there still is a lot of opportunity there, and the new construction has been increasingly successful. Next. This is what a lot of people want to talk about, the borough, what's going on with the borough. The Whole Foods, the largest, I think, Whole Foods in the mid-Atlantic, if not the East Coast. I can't remember the stat exactly there. It's been a wildly successful conversion of SAIC's old corporate campus into a multi-tenanted mixed-use development by the Meridian Group. Comprises 16 acres above the just to the left of the red number 1 is the NADA site, which Meridian Group has also acquired. This site plan is slightly dated in that they have taken over a few more of these locations to expand the borough district in its entirety. Phase 1 included 500,000 square feet of office with another office tower forthcoming, and then there may be some reappropriation of some of the other assets there. Number 2, right? So it's actually, yeah, number 2 is Tysons Central. That's Folger Pratt's office development. They are, pre-COVID, they were going speculatively with that, or at least to the parking garage in order to deliver for new tenants there. That'll add another 350,000 square feet of office, but then also next to it, there's almost 1,500 units, apartment units, multifamily units. Next. Here's a quick rendering of that. Tysons Central, the 25-story building, is the almost bluish building in the foreground there. The Lumen is a delivered apartment complex, multifamily apartment complex with 400 units. It was completed last year. Next. Okay, here's a quick rendering of, or site plan of the borough district. I'll work left to right. The light blue is now known as, I think it's Borough East, or East Borough, excuse me. It's comprising 5 buildings there. Between that is the Booz Allen Hamilton headquarters. The teal color were the old SAIC headquarters, where CVent and MC Dean are, which I'll talk about momentarily. The red building in the center is the new tower, which is delivered, which also has done extraordinarily well from a leasing perspective. MC Dean is a great example of a company that used to be in Loudoun County, and we're looking for a highly activated location that was amenity rich, and they were willing to quote unquote pay up to be in a location that was adjacent to Metro, but then also on top of significant amenities. I bring that up mainly to point out the success that we see. We prognosticate coming to some of those developments on the metro stations closer to Reston. Next. Full disclosure, number one, the View. I work with the developer and owner of the View on some of the leasing efforts. Excuse a fire truck in the background. This is going to be a massive development. It's about 9 acres. There's 1.4 million square feet of office, 850 units. There will be a performing arts center. This was approved late last year by Board of Supervisors, and so now is in site plan. And then to the south side of that, there's Dominion Square, and I failed to update one of these. One of those parcels was sold to a firm out of New York. While that does have a CDP in place, there's thought that that will be reappropriated. Next. Excitingly, these are the buildings of the View. These are the ones that you've probably seen on the cover of the Washington Business Journal and heard about. The iconic, the one on the far right, will be 600 feet tall. Comparison, I think the Washington Monument's about 455 feet tall last time I measured it. It'll be about 600 feet tall. It'll be the tallest building south of Philadelphia and north of Charlotte, with some pretty good architectural features on it, which may include, which in the plan will include a sky garden on there, as well as a lot of public spaces for the county. Next, I'll skip past this briefly, but this was the south side of 123, basically across from the View. I am going to next slide. There we go. I am going, though there is one more remaining station to talk about. I'm not going to steal Joe's thunder. I'll let him jump right into Reston and talk about the existing station at Wheelie Reston East, the successes that developer has had, and then some of the developments that are forthcoming, as well as those stations. So if there are any other questions about Tysons, obviously feel free to put them in the Q&A or the chat. We'll try and answer those either at the end or intermittently during, and I'll let Joe jump right in.
Thank you very much, Alex. And Alicia, if you could go to the next slide, please. So Wheelie Reston East is one of the stations that has been highly activated through redevelopment at this point. That most prominent development, of course, is Reston Station with Comstock. They have 2 other elements in their localized monopoly game there, very much like the borough and what they've done. Both outstanding developments with great success. And so you have Reston Station, Reston Promenade, and on the south side, Commerce Metro Center, 1 and 3 on this illustrative. Site number 2 is Midline, primarily JBG Smith with Chevy Chase Land Company and EYA doing infill townhomes. Site number 4 is a longtime owner of Isaac Newton Square, Peter Lawrence, bringing in MRP to lead a redevelopment effort. And let's get into more specifics on those sites. Next slide, please. So this plan shows, on the left, it shows the south side of the Reston Wheelie Metro Station. And that, of course, is Commerce Metro Center. On the right side, closest to the Metro Station is Reston Station, and then the Promenade is just behind that. Next slide, please. So now we're looking at both Reston Station and the Reston Station Promenade. The Helmut Jahn office building, great success lead tenant there was Google, 113,000 square feet. And really, they have done a spectacular job in their lease up, not just with 1900 Reston Metro's Plaza. 1902 was fully leased to ICF, 236,000 square feet. And 1906 has as its lead tenant New Star for 87,000 square feet. Spectacular results. The Boulevard Apartments, 450 residential, luxury residential multifamily apartments. And when you go to the Promenade, you can see to the right of Reston Station Boulevard, the Marriott Renaissance Hotel. What's really exciting about this hotel is it brings in Marriott's very successful concept of combining a hotel with luxury residential. There will be 80 condominium units on the top of that in a new type of product for Reston and the corridor. That development will also have 300,000 square feet of office space and another 2 resi buildings, and in addition to the 23-story hotel with 280 keys. Next slide, please. This shows Commerce Metro Center, the south side of the station. The residential towers or residential are items number 2 and 1 as noted there. The office building is tower number 3 in closest proximity to the metro station. And the building shown as number 4 is a future hotel. All urban mixed use, and almost all of these developments either have locally serving retail, which is generally 80 to 100,000 square or 70 to 100,000 square feet, site-specific retail, which is 10 to 20,000 square feet, or regional retail, which is 300,000 square feet and up. That's just a general comment. Next slide, please. So we've jumped back to the north side, north of Reston Station and across Sunset Hills Road, and the northeast corner of Wheelie and the toll road is JBG Smith's and Chevy Chase Land EYA midline development. Basically, approximately 1,500 residential units, locally serving retail, about 240,000 square feet, all first level. And then on the exit off the Dulles Toll Road onto Wheelie Avenue, headed westbound, that westbound exit, there's an office building right there, 250,000 square feet. Next slide, please. And I'm sorry, here's Isaac Newton Square. This is primarily residential, over 2,100 units. There are two office buildings in place that won't be redeveloped anytime soon. So this is clearly going to be phased over a long period of time. There's locally serving retail in the 70,000 square foot range, and 1 office building. Next slide, please. So as we leave Wheelie Avenue and head west, these are the 6 new stations that will open next July in phase 2. Let's go to Reston Town Center. Next slide, please. This shows the 4 main redevelopment projects in proximity of the Reston Town Center station. The item number, development number 1 is JBG Smith. Number 2 is Boston Properties RTC Next. Number 3 is Haley Rise, and number 4 is Reston Crossing. You can see Reston Crossing has 2 buildings right in the middle of that site. They're both viable, mostly leased, and so that will delay the redevelopment of that site. Next slide, please. So here we go, showing RTC West, and in the foreground center is a 22-story, 270,000 square foot office building. You know, clearly a beautiful first-class building. Immediately to the right of that is a loft office building, 170,000 square feet. You've got 3 buildings that will be built across the back, the tall building on the left, the low-rise building on the center, and the tall building on the back right. And that will bring in 576 new multifamily units. There's already been some retail redevelopment there. I'm sure you Restonians are familiar with that. All very successful. And the total additional add of retail will be 92,000 square feet. Next slide, please. This slide shows RTC Next. I also wanted to show, I mentioned Leidos earlier. Leidos just occupied within the past month and a half their brand new corporate office headquarters, 276,000 square feet, right due north of the Hyatt Regency Hotel. And as mentioned in the press this week, Alex led the charge, and I was privileged to be a part of it, and with a world-class Boston Properties team really doing the heavy lifting to bring Microsoft to lease all of the 2 Freedom Square building in Reston Town Center. You may also know that Microsoft already has an existing building in Reston Town Center immediately adjacent and to the east of RTC Next. They occupy now the full building, 180,000 square feet. So Microsoft is basically at 600,000 square feet in Reston Town Center. Let's take a closer look at RTC Next. Next slide, please. So there are 2 phases of RTC Next, which Fannie Mae is the lead tenant in phase 1, which the 2 blue buildings are under development right now. Those are office buildings. Phase 2 is to the right, a little over 2 million square feet in phase 2. And multiple vehicular, street, and pedestrian connections going back north to Reston Town Center. Streets, walkways, pass systems, great connectivity. From the heart of Reston Town Center to the Metro station, it's approximately 5 or 6 minute walk, depending upon which way you go. Next slide, please. So this is a rendering of RTC Next. The building on the left is, the tall building on the left is fully occupied by Fannie Mae. The building on center back is also part Fannie and part available. The exact amount of available square footage is being determined depending upon how much Fannie actually ends up occupying. In the middle front, you see a hotel. And I'm very pleased to report that next week, Boston Properties will sign a ground lease for that site for a new hotel. And more to come on that. I'm unable to announce that at this point in time. And the 2 buildings on the right are both residential, originally designed to be delivered in late 2022 or sometime in 2023. And with the COVID era we're in, that may change. So next slide, please. This is, I just wanted to show you, this is a view taken from a position on the crane that is constructing that RTC Next development, the office building. From the 28th floor, this is what you would see looking back north to the Reston Town Center urban core. Next slide, please. We've now moved on to Haley Rise with Brookfield, where I'm sure most of you have noticed that there is ongoing construction. Wegmans is under construction. The development will have in total 1.5 million square feet of office, about 1,700 multifamily units, regional retail planned currently at 380,000 square feet. That may, based upon COVID effects, may come down a little bit, and a 200-key hotel. Next slide, please. This shows the site plan. You can see the rendering of the Wegmans. It's under construction. planned to be approximately 100,000 square foot Wegmans. On the south, you see buildings A and B. Those are the two existing Reston Crescent buildings, 365,000 square feet available. Some of the largest blocks of available space in the corridor right now. Then you see office over retail in blocks A and G. Block E will be a hotel, and block D will be retail, residential, and office. That had a movie theater in it. Unfortunately, the movie theater decided not to move forward, but I have no doubt that this is also going to be successful development. Next slide, please. So this is Reston Crossing. It has, as I mentioned previously, two existing buildings that would need to be taken down. They're currently economically viable, so that's not going to happen anytime in the near future. But this is a 2 million square foot total development with primarily multifamily residential units, 1,300 units, almost 900,000 square feet of office in the two buildings closest and tallest to the metro station on the far left, and then locally serving retail at 50,000 square feet. But don't forget that it'll have the Wegmans and the other retail in the adjacent Haley Rise. Next slide, please. We moved out to the Herndon station now. There are two principal redevelopments on the north side of the toll road, north side of the station. On the south side of the station, proposed future development. Next slide, please. So the first development on the left is Penzance, 555 Herndon Parkway, a 375,000 square foot office components, 475 multifamily units, and site serving retail at 13,000 square feet. And then Lerner at 593 Herndon Parkway with about 250,000 square feet in office, 800 multifamily units, and again, site serving 10,000 square feet of retail. Next slide, please. This is the Woodland Park East site that contains primarily multifamily, both townhomes and apartment units, and with two office buildings immediately adjacent in the upper right-hand corner to the toll road. Next slide, please. So now we're moving on to kind of the Loudoun portion of it, even though the Innovation Station still contains some Fairfax County sites. Next slide, please. So the Innovation Center Station site has, I think, some of the most important developments for the future of both Fairfax and Loudoun County. Site number one is the landing at Innovation Center. That's the Rocks Engineering site with Penzance acting as the vertical developer. 500,000 square feet of office, 925 multifamily units, about 100,000 square feet of retail, and a 90,000 square foot hotel. The CIT and hub sites, I'm very excited about the recent purchase of the CIT site, 27 acres with the 150,000 square foot CIT building acquired by the owners of the hub, the principal owner being Origami. And then the third site up above that is a very important, probably mostly residential site, waterside, but also in fairly close proximity to rail. And then the Arrowbrook Center site, which has a unique feature, which I will talk about now. Next slide, please. First of all, this is one of the few urban mixed-use greenfield sites that can be purchased, already zoned, ready for urban mixed use, thanks to the good work that the representatives of the Launders Charitable Trust, the good work they've done on this site. So that 1 million square foot total land bay A, in terms of density, I think it's about a little over 9 acres, is available for purchase, you can see Guy Gravitt with Farms and Acreage about that. Below that, you see Ovation. And let me tell you more about that. Next slide, please. Ovation is developed by Stratford Capital Partners, SCG. SCG is in 25 states. They're one of the best affordable housing developers in the country. They are extraordinarily experienced. They're great. This is, in the current era, the best affordable housing development that I'm aware of anywhere in the Silver Line corridor. The structure of these deals, as I think most people know, are complicated in how to put the financing together and structure the deal. In this case, it was a 100-year ground lease, on top 274 multifamily affordable units, workforce housing, on top of 36,000 square feet of retail, kind of regionally or locally serving retail. And it was a condominium structure. So the retail is in a condo separated from the units above. And this is under construction, a delivery in 2022. This is a great example. We need more of this in the corridor. Next slide, please. Very significant happening here with the combination of CIT and the hub, thanks to Origami with Timberline. USAA is one of the principal financial funders of this site, a very significant amount of money pledged. And USAA has a long-standing, excellent relationship with Hines for vertical development. And it's highly likely that Hines will combine with Origami, Timberline, and their investor, USAA, as the developer partner for this site, from what I understand. The CIT site was bought for a little over $47 million for 27 acres and a 150,000 square foot building. Between the hub and CIT, that's 8 million square feet of future development. Godulski, 3.8 million square feet commercial. I think it's like 230 acres. I don't have the exact number right in front of me. And 2,200 multi-family units as a part of that as well. On the lower left, you see the Innovation Center South development. Next slide, please. This is a picture looking south from the toll road, looking south to that development. 500,000 square feet of office in buildings A1 and A2, each about 250 each. A1 almost was able to didn't quite get to the goal line, but they almost made a very sought after international or national headquarters for an international firm. Fell a little short on that, but I'm sure they're next up, or one of the next up, to land another deal. This has 100,000 square feet of retail, so it's kind of locally serving retail. The hotel's 90,000 square feet and 925 multifamily units. Most, if not all, have been delivered. A really nice urban mixed-use development. Next slide, please. This is a picture of, shows the hub and the CIT site. This is the hub's old site plan. It will not be developed in this manner. There will be entirely new thinking. Loudoun County is extremely excited about this site, as are the developers themselves. And in fact, I think we all should be excited. This is a world-class site with rail and one stop away, a couple minutes away from Dulles Airport, and unlimited potential. So very, very big upside here as well. Next slide, please. So here we are at Washington Dulles, and finally in next summer, we hope, the Metro rail station will open at Dulles Airport, and hopefully under circumstances where the demand and the ridership of the air traffic is at a much higher level than it is now. Next slide, please. The Loudoun Gateway Station is a unique kind of incident, if you will, in Metro Rail development. And what's happened here is between Sentinel and QTS, all the immediately adjacent land to the metro station, which by the way, only has an exit to the north, and that's shown in the picture on the lower right. Those are data center developers. They paid, if you combine the two, probably an average of $700,000 or $750,000 per usable acre, which is, you know, below market right now for what's happening with data center land in Loudoun County. It's just the demand is off the charts. But this has curtailed the ability for any urban mixed-use development, given that we only have a limited number of metro rail stations. You know, that's tough. We still have the land that the airport owns just to the right of the metro station itself, and we have the existing bus transit station, which will be linked to rail soon. Next slide, please. I wanted to include this slide to show that the purple is all the data center development, the existing 13 million square feet of data center development, which will double over the next approximately 3 years in Loudoun County, combined with the existing developments that are already on the map, and those are shown in yellow. And basically this shows that eastern Loudoun County, north of the airport, is basically absorbed in terms of land. Development, of course, there's still potential, as I just went over with the metro station. So there is still development potential, but the land has been claimed and a lot of it is for data centers. Next slide, please. This shows the Ashburn Station. The Moorefield development is number 1 in the colored streets and sites. Number 2 is the Gramercy District development with 22 capital partners. Min-Lee is the primary name associated with that. Site number 3, again, our friends at Comstock, and a really nice Loudoun Station development. And site number 4 is the Silverline District West site with Suave. Next slide, please. So here's Suave's site, and you can see in between 2 metro stations. We just talked about the Ashburn Station up in the far left corner, and the Loudoun Gateway Station in the lower right, but there will be no access to the south from that station. So even though I show it, there's really no access there, so it's kind of a bluff. This site will have mostly townhomes, 3,700 townhomes and multifamily units combined, 200,000 square feet of retail, which is kind of on the high end of locally serving retail, and 600,000 square feet of office. Next slide, please. This shows the Loudoun Station Comstock development, 1 Gramercy, up to 250,000 square feet, is all ready to go. The brochure is widely distributed. Jeff Roman and his team are doing a great job marketing that. The existing 50,000 square feet that Comstock has here is leased, and that includes the Loudoun County Economic Development Team. And I'm happy to mention that Comstock just delivered a substantial amount of new multifamily development immediately to the right of the 50,000 square foot existing office shown on that. Next slide, please. This shows the Gramercy District in front of 1 Gramercy, which is marked, and that is, of course, Comstock's building. But this is a rendering of what's planned there, urban mixed use. I believe they have selected a vertical developer that's not a service that Min Lee provides. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this evolves over time. Clearly, Comstock has done an excellent job already, and I'm sure they'll have good luck with One Gramercy. Next slide, please. Last but not least, Moorefield Metro. Moorefield, I had a chance to take a very close look at this site over a period of months. And it has, in my opinion, the best infrastructure of any site that I'm aware of in Northern Virginia. This team, this Moorefield, Claude Moore Charitable Foundation team has done just a world-class job of putting the infrastructure in for walkable urban mixed use. They are, however, not vertical developers, and that's what they need. They have developed most of their residential. They're in the two developments that are going to be urban mixed use will be the Transit District in pink and the Midtown District, which is in kind of an orangish color. That's roughly 120 acres. The total commercial development potential remaining in Moorefield is roughly 10 million square feet. So in addition to the residential that there's still is ongoing, they're just beginning to move to commercial in a serious way. And this site is going to be an important site for years and years to come. I think that concludes our presentation. So thank you for allowing us the privilege of presenting, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. That was great information. We'll just wait a couple minutes if anyone wants to put any questions in. In the meantime, it's not necessarily directly related to your presentation or the development. And I'm not sure if this is finalized, but just wondering, we do have a question if you've heard any murmurings possibly about when the Reston Town Center station might reopen, or simply when the second metro phase is opening up.
Well, yeah, I think I mentioned that several times. I think that is on track for next summer. I mean, you hear different things sooner or later, but you know, I think sometime next summer would be the timetable. Obviously, that's very exciting for all of us. Just like phase one, there's a little delay, and you know, we're still Metro Rail is still working through this with you know, all the authorities involved. But it's going to be very, very exciting. And just think about what has happened in Tysons and is already happening in phase two of the Silver Line Corridor now, even before that arrives. And let me add one additional thought. This is strictly a topic that I'm interested in. You know, we have the largest tech workforce population on the East Coast, the highest concentration. We've been very successful in pulling tech companies into this Silver Line Corridor as a result of that. But the barrier to our growth is only limited by the workforce we can supply. And so far, all the innovation districts, which combine bringing technology to commercial use quicker and training up with universities, GMU in the case of their Arlington campus and their new tech building, Virginia Tech in the case of Alexandria and their new campus. The Silver Line Corridor, this is Victor Hoskins' vision, needs 2 innovation districts. And the Reston Chamber of Commerce should get on board with other like-minded organizations to make sure that we can get at least 1 or 2 innovation districts, 1 east and 1 maybe 1 Tysons and 1 further west. The innovation station would appear to make a lot of sense for that, given that that was the original mission for that. But in order to continue to grow our workforce, we have to begin working on an innovation campus in at least one or two in this corridor. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And we had another one just come in that said, what HQs, what headquarters are potentially a fit for the CIT location? And great job on the Microsoft deal.
Yeah, so I think I'll jump in on that one. I think that we're seeing the most velocity and the most leasing activity in the high-tech firms that both need extensive power, but then also the infrastructure that comes with some of the data center that's a little bit further to the west of CIT. So Joe and I believe that it's probably going to come in the form of a cloud services or high margin technology company. Perhaps, you know, an envisionment of like an Amazon Web Services consolidation into a campus there. We do envision, as Joe mentioned, that the role an innovation campus will play is very important. So campus, I think, will be a key to that, and it will probably be a headquarters that has not only the mixed use development or mixed use components of it, the different asset classes, but also an educational component to it. You know, a local GW or Georgetown or UVA having some type of lab out there, innovation center out there.
Okay, great, thank you.
I see that we've gone over extensively. I apologize. Happy to take any other questions, but we've gone a long time.
No, that's all right. No, thank you for saying so. I think it worked out well because it's very, very interesting information. Thank you all for working so hard to put together this great presentation. I think it's incredibly interesting to see all the different things. And I think there just aren't more questions because you guys were so thorough.
I just kind of close with, this is kind of a living, this presentation, as those who have seen it before, is a living organism. It changes, it evolves. We frantically update sometimes before some of these presentations. So we don't usually send it out just because we don't want old information getting out there if we've changed it since then. But if there are any questions about any of these developments, who we see as target groups for in a business development perspective like that, a community business development perspective. Happy to take any questions.
Makes sense, thank you. So other than that, just wanted to thank you, Joe and Alex, again for your time today and this awesome information. Lastly, I just wanted to thank our legislative series sponsors again very quickly: McGuire Woods Consulting, Miller Musmar CPAs, Reed Smith Consulting, Sandy Spring Bank, and Walsh Colucci Lubli, and Walsh, again, for supporting today's digital programming. As a reminder, like you said, we're not able to share the PowerPoint at this time, but I will share this recording so you can review it again, at least how it is currently with this great information. Other than that, please consider joining us for our next legislative series webinar, which will be on June 9th. And that's going to be a little bit more COVID related, getting back to work, prepping the office, your workforce, and yourself. So we'll have representatives from the development community, sort of the property management, how they're preparing the office, how you should be preparing your office. And then we'll also have representatives from HR, just kind of the considerations of getting back, working with your employees on hours and flexibility, things like that. And then also talking about the mental aspect too, just a little bit of burnout from being at home too much or coming back, anxiety of coming back. So please join us for that. It should be very interesting. I'll put that in our follow-up email as well. It'll also be on restonchamber.org. Other than that, thank you all so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And stay safe and take care.
Thank you. Thanks.